Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I continue to bring you a video about the story of Tusan and CEO Hai. At the beginning of 2026, Tusan opened the small notebook that had followed her for many years. Its cover was slightly worn at the corners, and the pages had yellowed with time. She placed it neatly on the wooden table, took a deep breath, and only then picked up the pen to slowly write the first diary entries of the new year. Each stroke of handwriting appeared unhurried, as if every word needed to be carefully considered before being written down. Outside, the weather in Tuan Quang that day was gentle, not too cold. A light breeze passed through the treetops, carrying a sense of peace that felt fragile, almost fleeting. Yet deep inside Tusan, the undercurrents of emotion had not truly settled. After everything she had been through, she understood better than anyone that life does not grant absolute completeness to anyone. There is no perfect life, no person who walks through life without carrying scars. Everyone has their own pain. Some choose to hide it, some are forced to confront it, and others move forward while slowly learning how to accept it. Tusan paused her pen for a moment, her eyes quietly gazing out at the small yard in front of the house. Old memories returned uninvited, so vivid that her chest tightened slightly. The day she learned she was ill, the day the doctor spoke gently yet firmly, telling her that her chances of having another child were very low, remained painfully clear in her mind. At that moment, it felt as if all surrounding sounds were pushed far away, leaving only the rapid pounding of her heart and a hollow emptiness spreading through her body. Tusan had once fallen into despair, had once felt as though the sky was collapsing right before her eyes. There were long, sleepless nights when she lay still in the darkness, letting unanswered questions drill relentlessly into her thoughts. Why was her life like this? Why did things that seemed so simple to others become such overwhelming trials for her? Each thought weighed heavily, piling upon the next, exhausting her to the point where she wanted nothing more than to give up. But then, in those days that seemed to offer no way out, Tusan gradually realized that no matter how great the pain was, it could not erase what she still had. On some evenings, when Ivy was fast asleep, breathing softly, her small face peaceful in a way that felt almost unreal, Tusan would sit quietly beside her and watch her for a long time. In those moments, the turmoil in her heart seemed to slow down. She realized that she was still more fortunate than many other women out there. At the very least, she was still a mother, still had a child to love, to protect, to pour all her hope and sense of responsibility into. Holding Ivy in her arms and feeling that familiar warmth made Tusan understand that no matter what life might take away from her, it could never take away her motherhood or the love she carried in her heart. She returned to her diary and continued writing, each line a way of easing the heaviness pressing on her soul. Tusan did not write to complain about fate, nor to seek sympathy. She wrote to remind herself of everything she had been through, how weak she once was, and how she had found the strength to stand up again. Those diary pages were not merely memories, they were proof of her existence through turbulent times. With every word written, she felt her heart grow a little calmer, as if her sadness were being gently arranged, no longer as chaotic as before. Outside, time continued to pass quietly. The new year began without fanfare, yet it was enough to stir in Tusan a feeling that was both fragile and hopeful. She did not dare to think too far ahead, nor to make any grand promises. For her now, simply having each day pass in peace, simply knowing that Ivy was healthy and growing up surrounded by love, was more precious than anything else. She closed the notebook and set it aside, quietly aware that the road ahead was still long and filled with uncertainties. But at least at this moment, Tusan had learned how to face her pain, how to accept what could not be changed, and most importantly, how to cherish what was already right in front of her. Tusan told herself that if she kept running away, constantly avoiding the things that caused her pain, then perhaps she would gradually become the weakest person in her own life. Prolonged silence did not make sadness disappear, it only caused it to sink deeper, quietly eroding her inner world. She understood that she could no longer live in a suspended state between fear and insecurity, nor could she allow invisible worries to control every thought and emotion. And so, Tusan chose to face things head-on, face the truth, face her own limitations, and learn to make peace with the present, even if it was not exactly what she had once hoped for. She learned to cherish each day she was alive, each ordinary moment that passed by, because she knew that peace sometimes does not come from grand achievements, but from the ability to accept and understand oneself. Writing a diary gradually became an indispensable habit in Tusan's life. It was not merely a collection of lifeless pages, but a place where she could pour out all the feelings she did not know how to share with anyone else. Some things, if spoken aloud, might only make others worry or fail to fully understand. But through the quiet lines that appeared beneath her pen, Tusan felt free to be herself, without hiding, without forcing herself to be strong. Each line she wrote felt like releasing a burden from her heart, allowing it to grow lighter, allowing tangled emotions to be slowly arranged into a calmer order. At times she wrote very slowly, pausing midway as if to listen to her own breathing. At other times, the words flowed endlessly, as though her emotions had finally found an escape after being suppressed for so long. While Tusan struggled with her turbulent inner world, Hai continued to shoulder his responsibilities in silence, quietly, yet far from easily. Resting on his shoulders were obligations and decisions that could affect the entire road ahead. He found himself facing a major choice when a partner approached him with an offer to buy the entire production line and manufacturing process of the wood workshop, a place that had been with him for many years, holding not only his labor but also his dedication, his faith, and the dreams he had built piece by piece. The price offered was very high, enough to make anyone hesitate, enough to open up a far easier path financially. Yet Hai did not rush to agree. He understood that there were things that could not be measured or exchanged with money. That workshop was not merely a production facility. It was a symbol of the path he had chosen, of the days he had endured hardships with perseverance, and of the future he was steadily building. Selling everything would mean closing one chapter, giving up control, and placing the fate of his life's work in someone else's hands. Hai understood this clearly, and it was precisely this understanding that led him to decide not to sell, even though he could not avoid moments of hesitation and inner conflict. In search of greater reassurance, Hai shared everything with Quynh, a close friend living far away, someone who had accompanied him through many ups and downs through honest conversations. Through each exchange, each perspective shared, Hai came to see more clearly the value of what he already had. Quynh neither pressured him nor advised him in an imposing way. Instead, he simply helped Hai look back at the original reason he had started, reminding him that long-term sustainability sometimes mattered more than immediate gains. That conversation strengthened Hai's confidence in his decision. In the end, Hai chose the path of cooperation rather than selling everything. He chose to retain the core of the workshop, to keep control and direction over its development, while opening new opportunities through partnership and shared growth. It was not the shortest path nor the easiest choice, but it was the one he believed would be more sustainable in the long run. In that quiet resolve, Hai continued moving forward, carrying the belief that what is built with dedication and perseverance will be worthy of the time and effort invested, just as Tusan was learning, day by day, to face and cherish her own life. As for Tusan, Even though she kept telling herself that she had to be strong, that she had to learn how to face things and accept them, deep down she still carried a great fear, one she had never spoken aloud. It was the fear of losing Hai. This fear was not loud, nor did it show itself on the surface. Instead, it existed quietly, seeping into every thought and every silent moment of her day. She was afraid that if one day Hai learned the truth about her illness, learned that her chances of having another child were almost gone, he would be devastated. She feared that the calm look in his eyes would no longer be the same, that guilt and regret would take root in his heart, burdens she herself did not have the strength to carry alongside him. And deeper than all of that, Tusan feared that Hai might no longer want to stay by her side, even though he had never said or done anything that gave her reason to doubt his feelings. That very fear pushed Tusan to the edge of confession many times, only for her to step back again. There were moments when the words nearly reached her lips, yet in the end she still chose silence. She was not brave enough to speak that truth, not courageous enough to face the reaction of the person she loved most. Instead, Tusan chose to keep her worries to herself, quietly praying in her most silent moments. She prayed for more strength, for more time, and for the calmness she needed to keep moving forward, even though the road ahead was still filled with uncertainty. Those prayers were not for anything grand. They were simply a wish to stay by Hai's side a little longer, to preserve what she already had before having to face any other upheavals. As time passed, the days leading up to Tet gradually arrived, bringing with them the lively, unmistakable atmosphere of year's end. Tusan and Hai went shopping together, starting with the smallest and simplest things. They chose decorations piece by piece, each red light string, each small ornament to bring home. The streets were crowded, voices and footsteps bustling all around, yet inside Tusan felt a slower rhythm, as if everything were moving to a different, gentler, warmer pace. She watched Hai carefully as he selected items, occasionally turning to ask for her opinion, ordinary questions that nonetheless soothed her heart. When they returned home, the two of them decorated every small corner together. Red string lights were hung up, their warm glow spreading throughout the room. Simple decorations, filled with care, were placed in familiar spots, slowly giving the house the shape and spirit of an approaching Tet. Soft laughter echoed in that space, not loud, not boisterous, but enough to chase away the emptiness that had clung to Tusan for so long. In that moment, she suddenly felt that the house was no longer cold as before, but was gradually warming, not only because of the lights, but because of the presence of the people she loved. Ivy will love this, Tusan thought to herself as she looked around the newly decorated room. The image of the little girl running about, curiously examining the new ornaments, her eyes bright with excitement, softened Tusan's heart. That thought gave her a clear sense that all her efforts and endurance had meaning. Even though unnamed fears still lingered within her, even though the future ahead remained a great question mark, this present moment was real, something she could hold in her hands. And in that simple moment, Tusan realized that happiness does not always have to be grand or dazzling. Happiness can come from the smallest things, shopping together, hanging a string of lights together, laughing together over trivial details. Most important of all is having someone by your side, someone who walks with you through the hardest days, someone who shares moments that seem ordinary but become more precious than ever. Tusan stood quietly in the house that was slowly growing warmer, letting out a soft breath, not from exhaustion, but from the knowledge that, at least for this moment, she still had what she cherished most. Tet was drawing very near. Time seemed to move faster as the final days of the year slipped by one after another, carrying with them the familiar chill of the season and a quiet sense of anticipation that crept into every corner of daily life. For Tusan, these days were not only about preparing for a new Tet, but also the period filled with the heaviest thoughts. Her story still held worries that had never been spoken aloud, truths kept deep within her heart like a silent space she had not yet dared to touch. On the surface, she continued her routine as usual, smiling, talking, and sharing the responsibilities of family life with Hai, but inside, Tusan knew all too well that she was carrying a secret heavy enough to keep her awake night after night. There were mornings when, upon waking in the quiet stillness of the house, Tusan would remain lying there for a little while longer, listening to the steady rhythm of the home's breathing. She allowed her thoughts to drift slowly, without urgency, without forcing herself to find answers right away. She understood that fear does not simply vanish because one wishes it to, and that courage does not arrive in a single brief moment. Everything takes time, much like how people learn to grow after each upheaval in life. Tusan did not deny her worries, yet she also refused to let them consume her entire existence. Amid the busyness of work, family, and year-end preparations, she chose to believe in the simplest thing of all, that sincerity and strength, even if they come slowly, always have value. As the days leading up to Tet passed, the house gradually filled with familiar sounds and small, continuous tasks, giving Tusan a sense of being anchored in the present. She realized that if she kept living in fear of the future, she would miss so many things happening right in front of her. And so, she chose to move forward slowly, but not to stop. With each passing day, Tusan tried to live more fully with what she had, even though unanswered questions still lingered in her heart. She believed that as long as she remained sincere with herself and with the person by her side, there would eventually come a time when every challenge would reveal its own answer. Deep down, Tusan understood that there were truths that could not be hidden forever. Even though she did not yet have the courage to speak them at this moment, facing them was only a matter of sooner or later. Her silence did not come from a lack of trust, but from the fear of hurting the person she loved most. That was what tore at her the most. She hoped that when the day finally arrived, she would be calm enough, strong enough, to speak everything with complete honesty, without blame, without avoidance, just the truth, laid down gently and directly. And then, in the midst of these wandering thoughts, Tusan asked herself whether she would dare to step beyond the boundary of fear. Would she have the courage to tell Hai the truth, to face his reaction, even if it was the very thing she feared most? And when that day came, what would Hai choose once he knew everything? Would love be strong enough for them to overcome it together, or would those trials force them to stand before a different crossroads in life? Those questions continued to exist quietly, unanswered, like an empty space waiting to be filled. Tet was drawing very near, bringing with it the hope of a new beginning, but also presenting challenges that Tusan would sooner or later have to face. Her story was still unfolding slowly, yet full of emotion, with choices still ahead and decisions she was not yet ready to make. And all of it would gradually be revealed in the journeys to come, when Tusan would be forced to listen to her heart more clearly than ever before.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình nhé. Nay thì mình đang làm video. Con không xem máy múc à? À viết bài đó, đấy viết bài vừa viết vừa xem máy múc cũng được mẹ cho.
Nãy con nhà mẹ ở cho đâu?
Vậy thôi ngồi ở đây đợi một tí mẹ quay xong cái này rồi mẹ cho con ngồi ở đây học với mẹ nhá. Ok không? Đợi mẹ một tí mẹ xong việc cái đoạn này đã, mẹ đang dở việc nhá. Ui dồi ôi, con làm rớt cái gì đấy?
Con làm thuốc cảm, con nhặt lên bằng cái chân. Con nhặt lên bằng cái chân. Con nhặt trở lại này mẹ.
Mẹ đang Tusan làm cái này một tí nha.
nặng này cái gì luôn, nặng ở trong mà
ơi. Nó ngồi học ở đây với con để đợi con tí con xếp cái bàn này lại cho nó ngồi ở đây được.